What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and just today we got some extremely exciting reveals for Space Marine, the long-awaited sequel to the classic Warhammer 40k third-person shooter. The original Space Marine is really a game that I sort of cut my teeth on as a youth. I played the crap out of it, especially its co-op Exterminatus mode, and I even used to use it on some B-roll for videos on this channel up until really recently, actually. Dark Tide sort of scratches that itch for me if I want to get immersed into the Warhammer 40k setting, but it looks like Space Marine 2 might supersede that moving on to the future. Lots of super cool arcadey Space Marine versus Tyranid action, and if the clips in this gameplay showcase are anything to go by, it absolutely encapsulates the 41st millennium and warfare in Warhammer 40,000 better than, I think, basically any other presentation that we've seen so far. So I'm going to be breaking down this trailer for you. Let's dive in, and if you want to watch it yourself, there is a link down in the video description. So this looks relatively early on in the campaign. We have what looks like it to be maybe a Lieutenant Mira style character who was one of the guard commanders on Graia in the original Space Marine. One thing it looks like we had in the background as well is actually some Mechanicum servitors off on the side right here. They're just hanging out, and there's another one over on the left-hand side moving around some machinery. Gorgeous rendition of a Chimera in the foreground. We've seen that before in some of the other trailers, but some of the vehicles in this game look like some of the best renditions that we've seen in a 40k game so far. We also had a little servo skull run in front of the camera there. Look at this little guy. What's up, dude? Looks like you might have an Inquisitorial Rosette on the top there that is projecting as a hologram, so could be some interesting Ordo Xenos stuff. Now, I wonder, these guardsmen in the background are just shooting wildly, and looks like a lot of their shots are just going just right up in the air, basically not shooting anything at all. Probably why las guns are not that effective in Warhammer 40k proper, is because they keep just shooting them in the sky. It looks like we are defending a bunch of Earthshaker carriage batteries. Pretty controversial unit. I guess these are mostly just Earthshaker turrets. Kind of a controversial unit in 40k proper because they're just a usually cheaper and slightly more effective Basilisk for that reason. But so strange they're on the front lines, but it is what it is. Tyrannocytes dropping down now. And the classic Space Marine melee. Now, it looks like the pistol's actually like an auto-tracking ability rather than a secondary weapon that you can equip. Execution on the warrior. Get wrecked, warrior.
Reloading. Intelligence reports multiple swarms closing in. Direct us to them. Sending coordinates to your Auspex display.
Now, I like, in this little area here, we're going to pick up some additional equipment, it looks like. And I love that it's in this little tiny Space Marine drop pod. Clearly that was sent from orbit, right? Like, it has the thrusters on the back, and it has the like, entry burns, or re-entry burns on the bottom. But I guess they sent it from space, and they dropped it on the ground, and then somebody dragged it into this garage. The audio design of Space Marine has always been absolutely incredible, and this sounds no different. Gorgeous sounds. Now, one of the problems with the original Space Marine is that basically all of the enemies were identical. They didn't have any variety among... It was orcs you were fighting, for the most part. There was no variety among them, which is very strange. This one, it's trying to render so many different entities that giving them a lot of independent models would be pretty taxing, I imagine. So the fact that we're fighting Tyranids today and everyone's an identical little monster makes a ton of sense. So far, we have only seen Hormagaunts and Warriors, which are the only units that we saw in the previous trailers. It'll be interesting to see what else we get. I want to make another little observation, too, here, which is that Space Marine's control scheme is always kind of strange because melee attacks combined with ranged attacks is part of the gameplay loop. So they tied melee attacks to the right click, whereas most of the time A down sights would be on the right click in most shooters. People who weren't used to the control scheme would always end up melee attacking at inopportune times because you would like reflexively try to zoom in with the right click, and then you would just swing your knife. And it looks like that happened right here. I've done that a million times. If you watch any of my videos where I recorded Space Marine footage, I probably did that, dozens of times. And so I absolutely know that pain. But it speaks to the fact that the control scheme is probably exactly the same in Space Marine 2 from Space Marine 1. Big grenade there. And I do appreciate that the AI companions seem very dynamic as well. There's a lot of execution animations it looks like this game has, and they are gorgeous. It's incredibly gory, as befits 40K, for sure. Hell yeah, dude. So this is some new enemies that we haven't quite been shown off yet. We're seeing spore mines, and it definitely looks in this clip, as you can see over there, like they may be being fired. So we could see biovores potentially, I would hope. Although I guess they're just kind of they're coming from their floating animation down to flying around the ground. But it looks like the spore mines have a very prolific enemy in this game. They're not just an environmental hazard. They actually float around inside the big Tyranid swarms, and we'll see a little bit later on in the video. But it looks like that's actually where a lot of the damage on the character comes from. So again, getting lit up by some termagants right now. And that definitely looks like it is the new and improved termagant sculpt that we got in Leviathan. So yeah, these guys are a lot thinner and a lot spinier than termagants from the previous. One piece of scuttlebutt that a lot of people have been sort of espousing recently is that the Space Marine game has been delayed for so long, and we haven't seen too much of it because there are going to be new sculpts represented on in the Tyranid faction that you're fighting. So that will be interesting to see. It definitely looks like they are consistent with the new redesigns, but those sculpts aren't significantly different than the original models that they're replacing. So I don't know how much can be taken away from that. We'll have to see. But so far, we have basically just seen the termagants, the hormagaunts, the warriors, and the spore mines. Although you could potentially call these, warrior primes or whatever. Oh, insane execution animation right there. It's so good. You see a little bit of a Lehman Russ here. Oh, there's a ranged warrior. All right, that's interesting. So there is at least multiple different varieties of the warrior type, subtype. The melee guys have the double swords. It looks like they have scything talons on the shooting guys and devourers. The annoying thing about the armor system in Space Marine and the way ranged attackers interact with it is that you have these two bars up in the top left corner. These look like they are like regeneration thresholds, maybe, where if you don't lose the entire bar, it will regenerate back. Previously, that was your armor. Once that went down, it would start losing health. It was just a halo system, basically, and then the armor would regenerate if you were out of combat for long enough. So what ended up happening is that you would get stuck into melee in Space Marine, and this is probably Fury mode, which we had in the previous edition too, in the previous game. You would get into melee, and you would take a lot of damage from sort of attrition when fighting in condensed combat with a lot of people, but then you would try to escape and regenerate, and the ranged attackers would keep plinking you down. It looks like that high volume attack is going to be really annoying for that, which is good because it forces you to prioritize those guys before you can start sort of dancing around the sides of the big hordes. Speaking of big hordes, picked up a heavy bolter, I think. Oh, we will. Yeah, here it is. You can move through your teammates, it looks like. I'm always kind of a fan of that. Stops aggroing and annoying AI from being obnoxious. And that's the glorious thunder of the heavy bolter. These things sound so good in this game. And the other thing that's crazy about this too, and in stark contrast to the previous version, is just the amount of entities that are rendered on screen at each time. Because, you know, we're seeing literally thousands of these guys running up walls at you. And then as you can see in the back there too, there are spore mines, yeah, sort of floating along inside. And as, yeah, you have to be dealing with these hordes of dudes jumping at you, plus taking constant damage from the spore mines hitting you as well, which does look like a nightmare. And as you can see, right, almost the entire armor bar has been removed entirely by spore mines. The little Hormagaunts and Termagants are sort of just screening for them, which are actually doing damage to these big Space Marines, which does kind of make sense. I mean, I don't think canonically a Hormagaunt is going to pierce Ceramite that easily, but a spore mine can dissolve it pretty effectively. A little bit of a physics... some physics objects running around over there. I love that. Looks like there is friendly fire, because we just saw him shoot his buddy in the back. Oh, where are those Hormagaunts going? We just totally missed these big Space Marines clomping around. That was always one thing that Space Marine did really well, is make the Space Marines feel like really heavy and really... They were able to move fast and be extremely lethal, which you would also expect, but they're also, you know, literally like wearing a battle tank. So the fact that they were so meaty and... I don't want to say slow, but like they had a lot of impact with all of their movements. Really makes you feel the lore, but it also makes it harder to miss if you're running around. So it looks like some of them get into a stunned mode. I wonder if that is something that and that glory, that kill right there, that execution kill is amazing. That is something we saw, basically a Doom style mechanic, where you could stun enemies and then use them to generate health for yourself in the previous version. That was usually what you used Gretchen for, because you could automatically do it to Gretchen. The Gretchen were kind of just like health packs for you, but the Orcs, you could also do it if you stun them in a particular way. Huge flux of gargoyles here, but the interesting thing about them is that it looks like they don't actually interact at all. They just fly around, which is probably good for Lieutenant Titus over here, because I think he might have trouble if he gets shot by hundreds of gargoyles all at once. Absolutely insane model for the Leman Russ in the side here. Let's actually jump back a little bit. Yeah, this is probably the best rendered Leman Russ that we've ever seen, I think. And it looks like it's gone through a little bit of a subtle redesign for the game to increase its realism. The turret is slightly squatter and wider than the classic Leman Russ, and it looks like the gun is a little bit smaller as well, because the actual Leman Russ model, its gun is sort of kind of ludicrously big, and the turret is ludicrously small. It would never be able to fit the breech of a gun and a gunner inside, which it's supposed to have, because it does have a cupola that basically the commander stands inside the breech of the gun. Not a redesign, but like sort of a reimagining of the classic style. Yeah, I like as well, we have some really realistic animations for the guardsmen too. It looks like all of and the guardsmen are also not a single model either. We have a couple different kit outs for the guardsmen, which is, you know, I think just goes to show you, like, this unit's probably been holed up for a while. They're not all in their standard kit anymore, and they do look really good. And that's it. That's the entirety of the new gameplay section for Space Marine 2. Let me know down in the comment section what you think about this gameplay. It looks absolutely incredible, and I can't be more excited for it. Space Marine 1 was an amazing game, super underrated, I think, and definitely one of the best incarnations of the universe in video game form, and I am so looking forward to the sequel. So it's going to be amazing, and I hope you join me for it. So thanks, everybody. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.